I thank you, Paul, very much. And please, if you may now allow me to call to the stage His Excellency Ambassador Sanjay, Ambassador of India to Egypt, His Excellency Ambassador Tomás Guardia, Ambassador of Panama to Egypt, His Excellency Ambassador Fernando Sepulveda, Ambassador of Chile to Egypt, His Excellency Ambassador Leslie Baja, the Ambassador of Philippines to Egypt, His Excellency Ambassador Arvydas, Ambassador of Lithuania to Egypt, and our Executive Director, Dr. Esmat Kamel, who I will have the pleasure to co-moderate the session with her. Please. Thank you, gentlemen, Your Excellencies, for being with us. I highly appreciate, again, your patience, your presence, your contribution, and your support, and your open-mindedness for sharing information and for sharing with us your experiences on global competitiveness, your challenges and opportunities. The session is labeled Competing in Global Economy, Sharing Experiences with the Rest of the World, and it is a great, diverse session where we have Latin America represented, Southeast Asia, we have Central America, we have Europe, and of course India with us. So I want to start with His Excellency Ambassador Sanjay first, if you may allow. I think I'll do what Dina did and sort of walk around, which is much easier. Your Excellency, last year, India was the inspiration for Egypt on the Global Competitiveness Index. And so as Panama, you were on a panel called the fastest moving, or the best performing, fastest moving countries in the world. You moved 16 points, I believe, last year. And I was very envious. I remember in our second annual summit, and I stood there and I said, these are the points that I want, and thank God we were able to achieve that, coming down 15 points from almost 115 to 100 now, but our aspirations are much, much bigger. A lot of people in Egypt complain about, you know, the population is too big, there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape, there's, I mean, a lot of things that are similar in India at this point. Economic reforms in terms of currency, in terms of change of even the currency itself, in terms of a design. So there's a lot of economic reforms that have been going on in India for 30 years, almost 30 years. Maybe 30 years ago you were doing what we're doing now, so, you know, removing subsidies, agriculture subsidies, the floating of your currency and so on and so forth. So what I want to get to, Your Excellency, is to show that India is performing very well in a very competitive and very volatile market, part of the BRICS and one of the largest nations in the world. How do you do it? How do you become so competitive despite the fact that you have so many challenges, or at least we believe that there's challenges? Diversity, cultural diversity, large country, large population, you know, there's a lot that is very similar, but you've been able to do it. There's at least one Indian CEO in every company in the world at this point. So how do you do it? How does India maintain its competitiveness, and what do you expect will be your performance this year?
Thank you, Ashraf. Firstly, thanks for inviting us to this panel and surprising us with what preceded before this discussion began, but thank you very much for both of that. We believe that the era of transformation is not just, it's not over, certainly. It's only getting more intense. And therefore, reform and the ability to innovate has to be at the core of any economic change process. We came on the headwinds of 2 very successive years, 16 points gained the previous year, and 15 points gained the year before that. So we had an amazing run of 31 points of success. And this year what we've done is we've lost 1 point. So we see this as a period of consolidation. But what's been satisfying to us is that on every indicator, all the 12 of them, India has improved its individual score. We are now at a stage, as I said, of consolidation, and therefore we are now into the nitty-gritty of how transformation must get to the next level. For the next couple of years, we have currently identified about 372 specific business processes. And it's the identification process which was very intense to see how we can improve the ease of doing business. And these are across the spectrum. The broad perspective that we have had is that there must be greater efficiency and competitiveness, and a lot of this would have to be achieved by transforming ourselves into more e-platforms. So a lot of the government interface issues are now on the e-platform. And therefore, this is a time of transition for the private sector to get used to this particular new platforms, a set of them that are being put out. And therefore, there is a bit of a lull. But I would expect that in the days to come, and we particularly have these 372 processes that we identified are about starting a business, resolving insolvencies, payment of taxes, getting finance and credit, enforcing of contracts, protection of minority investors, construction permits, which used to be a huge issue, particularly given that land is privately owned across the country. And there are very serious environmental concerns on the other hand. And the final thing about trading across barriers. So these were the set of ideas we wished to improve upon, and we have looked at specific points to try and improve the performance in each of them. So our target still remains that in the days to come, we would wish to be in the top 10 on the Global Competitiveness Index, and we see the present phase as one of consolidation. The biggest reform that we undertook last year was the enactment of the GST Act, or the Goods and Services Tax, which is a pan tax all across the country, makes it a one country, literally, for the first time, because we've done away with all the other state taxes. So there's just one federal tax. And that has improved logistics, it's improved compliance, it's enhanced revenues by almost 13% in the second and the first quarter. Of course, there was a sharp decline in the revenues reached. But from the second quarter onwards, there has been significant buoyant trend in the realization of tax revenue. All this means that we have more funds to play around with and push the process further. So we remain optimistic and gung-ho about the future. Thank you, Your Excellency. Truly, Your Excellency, Ambassador Sanjay, you'll be missed. I witnessed 2 conferences with Your Excellency. Thank you. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Chile. Well, we have been talking in the first session about the culture and how people's mindset are, is different, and how they should think with respect to new ideas. And we know that Chile is 33 on the Global Competitiveness Index in terms of ranking. And one of the very important things Chile is oriented to is the innovation plan. They have a master innovation plan maybe they started it not just those years, but maybe it started from before 2010 with the Chile startup, and innovation is a very important pillar on the global competitiveness. If you can kindly talk to us about this, how it started, and what is it known by as well? It's known by a very famous name.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting forum. I think we are in the right place here in a smart village where innovation and technology has a home. Answering your question, first of all, I would like to put the situation of Chile in context. We are just 17 million of inhabitants in Chile. That means less than the Cairo population, and we are among the OECD countries. We have right now per capita income of $24,000 US per year, and we aim to reach $28,000 US in the 4 years coming. That means Chile will be among the developed countries. And what is the key of this modest success? And I think modest success because I recall that recently Christine Lagarde, the Director General for MIF, said that the numbers of Chile are fantastic. Well, first of all, we have heard the director of Pro-Mexico said that 30 years ago, they started a process of opening the economy. Chile started this process 50 years ago. And now, let me say that Chile is one of the most open economies in the world. Chile has signed 26 free trade agreements that involves 75 countries that represents the 80% of the world product. 50 years ago, the export represent just 12% of the domestic product of Chile. Now represent more than 40%. Because in Chile, we strongly believe in free trade. And also I want to say that even recently, when we have seen a trend in order to go back to protectionism, especially with the new US administration, that withdraw US from the TPP, Chile strongly worked in order to solve the TPP. And now we are talking about TPP 11, not TPP 12, but TPP 11. Well, this idea of free trade market has been really a success of Chile. But also the key was the involvement of the public sector in the export process. We create ProChile almost 50 years ago. It's a very successful experience that has been replicated by many, many countries. That means Chile helps especially the small and medium companies in order to improve its skill to export. But it's true, we are 33 in innovation, but also we are number 19 in transparency, number 21 in environment for doing business in Chile. But our innovation rank is, I think, is 52. But what we are doing in Chile, we have established a national plan for innovation that has 4 pillars. The first of them is to democratize the innovation. That means to enlarge the innovation among the small and medium companies. Why? Because the small and medium companies already are investing just 5% in innovation, compared with the big companies that invest more than 12%. Secondly, we are trying to diversify our productive matrix. That is a key for us. Third, we are trying to increase the knowledge production and to link this new knowledge production with the small and medium companies. And fourth, we are strengthening the legal framework for the innovation. That means we have a National Council for Innovation that we are allocating more resources and giving to that council more autonomy. But we are hoping that in the next index we will improve in innovation.
And actually, Your Excellency, something, I mean, this is not just for Chile as a leader in innovation, but you're doing that as well for the whole region and the whole world. Because I believe as well you received a big group of researchers and entrepreneurs, and they mingled and created of a culture, right?
Well, also, let me talk, if I have time, a little bit about a very great and successful experience that is Startup Chile. What does mean Startup Chile? It's a program that started 8 years ago that gives the opportunity for young entrepreneurs worldwide to go to Chile to receive $40,000 to work in Chile for a period of 6 months, and we give them free access to office space, to internet, to networking, and many other facilities. And what we ask in return, something very simple, to share their experiences with the local entrepreneurs and consider Chile also as a second home.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Ashraf, I would like to... Your Excellency, Ambassador of Panama, thank you for joining us so much. And as well, I know you have a very rich experience in Panama in terms of the healthcare and the educational sector. If you can just tell us about it a little bit.
Well, thank you, Esmat, and thank you, Ashraf, for the invitation today. Definitely, it's a pleasure to be here for the second time, sharing with you Panama's achievements and progress in the Competitiveness Index report. Even though this year we have fallen back 8 places in numbers from 42 to 50, but as my friend Leslie always points out, our score has been relatively consistent throughout the years between 4.5, 4.4. So this year we fell back 0.1 point in scoring. So that is basically we've maintained. And yes, we have quite strong sectors in the pillars. And I would like to point out that within the Latin American region, following Chile, of course, which leads the Latin American region in competitiveness, followed by Costa Rica and then Panama as third. We lead in the pillars, basically in infrastructure. We just completed the Panama Canal expansion in 2016, and we have been increasing our air connectivity as well. So these are two factors that have increased and keep us in a very high level in the infrastructure sector. Secondly, the macroeconomic environment, which we have a very strong sector because of our financial system and a financial center, and the stability because basically of the pegging of the national money to the US dollar is 1-to-1, and it's the free circulation of the US dollar. And in the third area, yeah, so basically those are the big advance that we have reached. Thank you.
Your Excellency, I would, I mean, from you, yes, the infrastructure and the Panama Canal, of course, has a spillover effects and great dynamism in the region for the Latin American and Caribbean. But I was wondering about the goods efficiency market and the exports and investments. I believe that your ranking in goods market efficiency is not like the market size and like the infrastructure. So do you see maybe, are you working, your government, for instance, is working on a certain plan regarding to enhance the goods market efficiency more and to be aligned maybe with the size of the infrastructure?
Yes, definitely. Well, market size, Chile says just 17 million. I would say we're just 4 million. And my friend here would probably say a little bit less, but definitely the issue of market size, it's not one of our strengths. But I think our strengths would be in the connectivity, the maritime connectivity and the air connectivity. So that compensates the small market size. And as Chile mentioned, the issue of free trade agreement and the openness of the economy, by which Panama becomes a gateway for the North American market, for the Caribbean market, and to a certain extent the South American market. We are lagging behind, as you say. We have big challenges in the doing business, ease of doing business index, and this is something that needs to be addressed. And here is an issue of the labor market, of the labor regulations, of the ease of contracting and firing persons, and the labor
Regulations, maybe? Labor regulations are a
Yes,
little bit of a hindrance.
There is a labor regulation that is might need some updating, but at the same time, you have to safeguard the rights of the workers. So there is a dichotomy there, and there's a discussion going on of how to safeguard the labor rights while making it easier to do business. The second issue would be bureaucracy, which is one of issues we're lagging behind. And this, the government has been working very strongly with the e-government, the electronic government, and how doing one-stop shops to favor investment. And here I would like to raise an issue that we saw today. Earlier was the Suez economic zone, and the whole progress that Egypt is doing in establishing and promoting special economic zones. I think countries around the panel here have similar experience. Panama has as well, both on the Pacific and on the Caribbean side, of how to do special economic zones that to a certain extent exempts companies from some of the labor regulations and some of other kinds of impositions. This attracts investment, this gives jobs, and has very much benefits for the economy. But then it begs the question, why does that not become the norm for the rest of the country? And why favor special areas and not have a level playing field in the country? Of course, this is a long debate we will not resolve today, but I just want to raise the issue because this is something that we're seeing. For example, in our labor regulation, we have a restriction on the amount of foreign workers that a company can hire. It has to be a certain percentage of the total workforce. There are some exemptions for higher management, for skills that are not easily available in the country. But being Panama, as many other countries, growing economy, we have one of the fastest growing economy in the region. Projections for this year are around 5.6%. We attract quite a lot of migrants to the country. So it begs the question how to comply with this issue of labor regulation when you have a big influx of migrants that are legally residing in the country and that have the skills to perform. So that takes us to the other issue that is a big challenge, which is education and specialized education. And this is one of the things that I think we can discuss further.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency, very much. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Philippines, during our meeting, we have been discussing that you have many of the pillars. You're 56 on the world in the ranking from the Global Competitiveness Index, as I believe. You have many of the upscaled pillars, such as the macroeconomic stability, the institutions, and market size. But on the other hand, you are working right now to improve a little bit and enhance on the infrastructure pillar, as far as I know. So can you tell us sort of what are the big infrastructures and investments that are put right now to, and maybe you told me a very interesting description about the movement sort of and the traffic in Philippines, so that would be interesting to show.
Thank you, Esmat. Yes. We do recognize the seeming lack of infrastructure in the country, so much so that we have a plan, we have a program right now that would see the Philippines invest about 5 to 7% of its GDP on infrastructure. In the next few years, up to 2022, the plan is to invest about 180 billion US dollars on 75 flagship projects that would include about 6 airports, 4 seaports, 9 railways, 32 roads and bridges. That would make a country more connected. That would make the countryside have a burgeoning industry that would improve connectivity, improve production, or rather lower production costs. Aside from that, we're looking at about 5 energy projects that would ensure continued energy at lower costs, as well as agricultural projects that would increase productivity, and of course other projects that would help alleviate the impact on climate change. So these are some of the things that we're doing right now, and hopefully it will really address the seeming lack of infrastructure in the Philippines, which is not surprising given the size of the population that we have, close to 105 million, similar to Egypt. And since we're growing at a rate of 6.7%, just second to India, so we are really pressed to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Lithuania, we have the honor of having you today on the panel. And we were talking a little bit, when we were talking during our networking, you pointed to something very important, which is maybe how the mindset of people and citizens in Lithuania is changing right now, and they are sort of trying to link between the education and the labor market, which is a very important thing maybe we need to focus on here in Egypt as well, to enhance the ranking of higher education and as well the labor market. So if you can tell us about your experience, what are your sort of reflections about that, it would be great.
Hello everyone, it was very nice seeing you, and it's very nice to be with my friends here. As my friend Tomás pointed out, I Googled before. Yes, I represent the smallest country out of the 5, both by the population and the territory. But
just let me, sorry, interrupt. 40, your rank is 41 on the global competitiveness ranking. So,
but as we say, being small, think big, do big, and achieve big. So I just very often talk to my friends and to my new friends, asking the question. Whether Lithuania as a country would be today if not more than 50 years ago, before the Second World War, the natural development of the country would not be interrupted. Before the Second World War, Lithuania was occupied, annexed, and included into very strange, illogical economical system of Soviet Union. And it took 50 years for us to get our independence back. So 1990, we are back on the world stage, as we used to be called new kids on the block. 3 Baltic states coming back to the world, telling, look guys, we are back, and no one remembers, except some older generation people, because 50 years, it's 2 generations to lose. Of course, first years, it was preoccupied with the strengthening the governmental structure, borders, customs, and what just normally goes as a set of the state. But as you asked this question, at the beginning we had very different ideas. But now when we're talking about competitiveness, we could look back several decades ago and to say, look, we made the mistakes. Yes, everyone is making mistakes. The biggest mistake is not to do the mistake, but to stay in your mistake. So we learn from
and to learn from it, you're right, absolutely.
We learn from these mistakes, and we don't tell anymore that, for example, look, our traditional industries could keep the country running. Yes, traditional industries are very important, because it's linked to the culture, to your mentality, goes centuries ago. but it's not the driving force of the country today in 21st century. So it took very short time for us to figure out that it probably was the wrong idea, and then to come to what Lithuania is now. It's a modern, innovative, and well-educated country. And it took another number of years to realize that it's not enough to have well-educated labor force. It's not enough to have. The most important thing is to have the well-educated labor force which is needed for the industry. And at the same time, to have this labor force as close to the industry. That the universities or other colleges or other institutions could be very quickly to adapt to the need of the market. Of course, when you're talking about the IT, probably it will be quite a long time. You will need IT experts, IT specialists. But sometimes that depends what trends on the market you need to quickly to adjust this ability of people.
Okay, thank you, Your Excellency. That's great. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Philippines, something that took my attention where you're speaking right now was about climate change. And you know, climate change, this is now a very important criteria, and maybe for the future as well of the Global Competitiveness Index. It might be incorporated, or actually every sector is looking, and all the nations are looking to how efficiently to use their resources and just for the sake of climate change and for saving the planet, as we say. So, as you talked about climate change, do you have something for your competitiveness and in your national strategies for climate change?
Yes, we certainly do. As you know, the Philippines is located in the part of the world where you have all kinds of weather challenges. We get flooding, we get all kinds of changes right now. We don't have snow, not yet. But this is something that we are addressing because much of our productivity, much of our development is also dependent upon the predictability of the climate. We're improving our irrigation system to improve agriculture, so we are improving other kinds of facilities that would prevent any damage to our environment, that would prevent any damage to our products, and also that would help in the climate change advocacies that we right now have. We have a climate change commission that has been very busy in coming up with projects that address this. And yeah, I don't have the complete profile of all the projects, but we certainly are very much in the forefront of this because, as I said, we are part of that special group of what we call Climate Vulnerable Forum, wherein there is a group of 20 countries that are always being challenged by any changes to the climate. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your insights. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Panama, I would like to ask the same question maybe from a different perspective of a different region. So do you take into consideration in your competitiveness or maybe strategies, national strategies, the climate change for Panama, for the region and so on?
Well, it's part of our national development strategy, the issue of sustainability, of environmental sustainability, which includes, of course, the issue of climate change. And it's linked as well to the canal. The Panama Canal runs basically on rainwater, and it's a key factor for the smooth operation of the canal. The issue of deforestation in the country has been a big challenge, and we have seen in the last 20 years small areas being under a process of desertification. So these small deserts that are growing, it's a big worry for us. So definitely the issue of of sustainability is key for our national development. It's linked to the canal, it's linked to our agricultural sector. We are quite blessed to be in a region or in a country that does not have big natural disasters for some reason or another, and the hurricane usually go over us or below us, but doesn't hit us directly. We are outside the big earthquake areas and regions. So our big challenges are the flooding and the excess of water, which can also be bad. But the biggest challenge, I would say, would be the lack of water. And this issue is directly linked with the process of forestation and sustainability. But this also translates into urban sustainability and urban development, because Panama, most of the population lives in the cities, not in the rural areas like many other countries. So how do you develop eco-friendly communities in the urban area? So it's very much linked, intertwined with all of this. The Panama Canal is just scarcely 5-10 kilometers away from Panama City. So that you have to have an integration of your main resources with a natural environment. So definitely, yes, the issue of climate change and environmental sustainability is a big issue for our national development.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It's very true. Sustainability is now, and even the Sustainable Development Goals all over the world is a very important topic and part of the competitiveness, there is no doubt. Your Excellency, Ambassador of India, I'm going to talk to you about sustainability, but from another side. Maybe the sustainability and amazing job actually India is doing all over the world with promoting the investments and really going out and promoting all the multinationals all over the world. So can you talk to us about this plan, maybe in terms of how far you want to access, and what is your plan for investments all over the world, as we have seen here in Egypt, and we know them very well, and we enjoy very much either their services or products. So that would be great if you're to tell us about the rest of the world as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Esmat. We believe that we are a global community, and globalization is a reality which we have to accept as one of the more beneficial outcomes of human progress. And in this process, I believe, we in India believe that it's always a mutually beneficial process if we can allow it to grow unfettered and without prejudices, because what often happens in the process of globalization is that certain prejudices come in which hamper the true flow of trade and development, or it hampers the flow of natural persons. And these are all issues that are discussed and debated at the WTO. But from the developing country perspective, which is what we still are, we don't always get sufficient responses. As a country that still has a very large number of poor people who do need government subsidies, we would like to see, for instance, a reform of the subsidies definition across the world, and particularly in the WTO context, because the current one of red, amber, green is something that benefits the developed country subsidies rather than the developing country subsidies. So while there is a multilateral context to this process of sustainable growth and expansion, there is also a natural process that comes about because of domestic growth having to link up with the global community. This started off with the linking up of global supply chains and value chains, and I think that's one that India is very closely associated with, and I suspect our performance on many of those indicators would be quite impressive. But there's still a long way to go, because we still feel the imperative and the need to have to go out and invest. So I had mentioned earlier that today India is the largest destination of greenfield FDI in the world. And that's but natural because of the fast pace, the strong financial institutions that we have, the large market that we provide. But equally, India is growing as an investor outside. And this happens in two forms. One, which is our strategic investments through our the government sector in strategic assets or access to assets in many cases, which is necessary, but more so in the case of corporate, private Indian corporate investments overseas. Last year, if I recall, we had invested roughly about $35 billion overseas in terms of corporate acquisitions, mergers, or new investments totally. This provides us with enormous access to new technologies, innovation hubs, and also to new forms of management and practices, which then come back to the home ground. Recall that 4 decades ago, we used to think that we were an overpopulated country. Today, we don't think so. Although we are 1.25 billion heads, we believe that that's so many brains that will contribute to national development rather than that many mouths and bellies to fill. So I think as we change the definition or are able to change the definition in which we view our own destinies, that is going to go ahead. In terms of specifics, we have seen that Europe and America were very large centers for our overseas investments in the past, and I think this was certainly the case in the last couple of decades. But that is now beginning to change. We see that investments into Southeast Asia, Far East, particularly Japan and Korea, and Africa are now beginning to grow in importance. We have a CEPA, which is a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with ASEAN, and a similar agreement with Japan and Korea, which facilitates the flow of investments both ways. So while we are the largest recipient of JICA investments, or loans actually, we are also very large investors in innovation and technology in Japan. And to be able to plug into what is perhaps the greatest innovation hub outside of the US is a huge opportunity for us. We have as many as 500 Indian scientists who work on various joint projects in Japan, for example. We have noticed that Africa is the continent of the future. It has largely resolved most of its outstanding political and security challenges, particularly sub-Saharan Africa is really in boom time. Capacity building is something that we've been greatly involved in this part of Africa. And there are very large investments that have gone in towards that particular aspect, because we believe that human capital is the ultimate resource for any progress. And that's what gives us the leverage. So I would see that we will continue to see more investments coming to Egypt as well during the last few years.
We'd love to, actually.
Yeah, we were amongst the largest investors in the non-hydrocarbon sector over the last decade. This is something that's often not recognized because of the large volume that usually comes in because of the hydrocarbons. But the non-hydrocarbon sector, and you saw an example of this in Mongini, which is an Indian company, which provides employment to hundreds of people. Today, Indian companies provide jobs to 35,000 Egyptians. We export over $500 million worth of products from Egypt. And in many ways, we bring in new technologies and management practices. And most of the top CEOs of Indian companies are Egyptian. So this is a mutually win-win situation that we create not just in Egypt, but in countries across the world where we do it. So some of the marquee labels, for instance, Jaguar Land Rover is now a Tata company. And we have such marquee labels across the globe today. We would like to see these synergies develop and globalization come back to the fore.
Certainly, Your Excellency, this is true. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Chile, at this now, after we've taken all this long day and seen different competitiveness experiences all over the world, certainly we pause a little bit and we take a breath and we say one thing: what, from Your Excellency's respective countries' experience, what could be one thing, knowledge transfer, as you have an innovation, for instance, and your experience with the startup Chile? What would you think one thing Chile could transfer as in competitiveness experience to Egypt?
Well, this is a key question. One of the main pillars of the Chilean economic success is our openness of the economy, and among these, the creation of Pro-Chile. And we are cooperating with the Development Support Agency of Egypt, Pro-Chile, and this agency, in order to transfer our know-how, our experience, and already we are in the process of subscribe an MOU in that direction. But there are many other fields that we can collaborate. For example, in a very important matter, that is the renewable energy. This is a very important area that was not mentioned here. We have a great experience on renewable energy. Just 6 years ago, only 7% of the energy in Chile was no renewable energy. Now it's 20% because we have implemented a very successful plan. And also, I think, is an area we can share together. And also, we are trying to increase our bilateral trade, and we hope that in the near future we can have a free trade agreement with Egypt, because it's very important not only for trade, but free trade agreement can cover many other areas like facilitate investment and also areas as transfer of technology. And well, I think there are many, many areas that we can collaborate. Already our investment in Egypt is around $500 million, especially in the field of petroleum, but also in real estate. There is a company that is Crystal Lagoon that have 8 projects in the real estate area in Egypt. Well, but our task, of course, is always improve these figures.
Your Excellency, it's enough. I mean, for the entrepreneur and the Chile startup, if this as well, this could be a very good thing, especially that the experience you receive, the entrepreneurs from all over the world. So this could be another aspect of cooperation.
Of course, and we hope to have many entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs from Egypt.
And the same for us from Chile as well. Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Ambassador of Lithuania, the same thing I would just ask you. If you would like to carry or to transfer something out of the experience of Lithuania, the rich experience, to Egypt, what would it be? Please.
I would start from a little bit further. In today's world, it's very difficult to invent a wheel now. It's the same, it's very difficult to invent something new in the economical system or structure or how it works. That would be better that it's already invented. If we put all books written about how the economy should function to give the results and to make everyone happy, including the citizens and the rest of the world, we would pile the books here, it will be a full room of these books. Now I would raise a question, why so many wise men, so many Nobel Prize winners write books and they put really truth into these books, but in some countries it works, in some not. I don't know, should we start talking, does it size matter of the country, the population matter, the climate, the flat or mountains, or education, or set of right knowledge and set of right tools, or the right decision of the government, or the high or low level of the corruption, or I don't know, just really we could sit and to talk. It's you probably could tell us what makes the system, which is already invented like a wheel, sometimes works, sometimes not. So it's very difficult to give the advice to the country based on model in one country. In my case, it's a relatively small country. Probably we sometimes joke the total population of Lithuania is a little bit bigger than Zamalek, but it's a little bit more bigger. So it's very difficult to give these advices, and we could try, and we do that with the help of the European Union and the EU funding. I forgot to mention that I am the only here from European Union. So Lithuania is member of European Union, member of Schengen zone. We use euro as our national currency, and that goes with a lot of other benefits. So what we do, but that of course it's under the request of the Egyptian government, in certain sectors. In certain sectors, Egypt government says that, look, we need your advice or your help to develop certain sector, like it was in the Council of Competition in Egypt. And Lithuania, together with Germany, won the tender to be the advisor. So for more than 2 years, 27 months, we have been advising Egypt how to develop this part of, not economy, but to say relations with the customers, with the companies. And I hope it was a very successful project when we have the Lithuanian know-how, German Ordnung ist Ordnung. So really, I think it worked perfectly. So if you allow me, I would really hesitate to give the advice because there is a huge number of very smart people in Egypt who really could find, and they are doing that their own way, how to develop the country they love, they cherish, and they are eager to support and keep it strong.
Your Excellency, is very true. Enough we could speak of maybe the exchange in sectors and through experiences and vocational training between both, if you, to honest. Thank you, Your Excellencies. Your Excellencies, I'd like to thank you all. I believe we've taken so much time for the panel, but it was one of the most enjoyable panel. I enjoyed immensely, and it's really an honor, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Lithuania. Ashraf, you would like to have any further? Your Excellency, Ambassador of Philippines, thank you. Your Excellency, Ambassadors of Panama, Your Excellency, Ambassador of India, and of course, not least, of course, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Chile. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, for this wonderful panel.
Thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for your presence. Please don't miss out on our next Global Trade Matters events on global competitiveness. Thank you, Esmat. Thank you, Your Excellencies, once again for your time and your presence.